On Christmas night, my parents disowned me. Less than 2 weeks later, they were begging for my help. That's not how family is supposed to work, right? For 10 years, I gave them everything. My money, my time, my future, believing that love was something I could earn. That if I just worked hard enough, sacrificed enough, they'd finally see me as more than just a source of income. But love doesn't work like that. Family doesn't work like that. By the time I realized the truth, I wasn't even angry. I didn't argue. I didn't fight for my place. I just walked away. And for the first time in my life, I let them feel what it was like to live without me. This is my story. The first time I shared it on Reddit, I didn't expect it to blow up the way it did. But today, I want to tell you everything. From the very beginning to the moment I finally cut them off for good. And if you've ever felt like nothing more than a walking ATM to the people who were supposed to love you, you might want to stick around. Because this story, it's just getting started. Subscribe to Reddit True Vault for more stories like this. I was never just a son. I was the backup plan, the safety net, the one who always had to understand, while my younger brother got to live without a care in the world. My name is Travis Whitaker, and I'm 35 years old. I grew up in Denver, Colorado, in a household where love wasn't unconditional. It was transactional. My parents, Gerald and Diane Whitaker, always had a way of making it sound reasonable, like it was just the natural order of things. Colton, my younger brother, was the golden child. I was the one who had to make sure he stayed comfortable. And it started early. I remember being 9 years old, standing in the checkout line of a bookstore, clutching a paperback I'd been saving up for. I had counted my allowance twice, making sure I had just enough. I turned to my mom, excited. "Mom, can I get this book?" She smiled, smoothing down my hair. "Oh, Travis, you're getting so responsible." But you know what would be even more responsible? I already knew where this was going. "Why don't you save that money? Colton needs new shoes for soccer, and he's been really looking forward to them." I hesitated, looking down at the book. I had wanted it for weeks. But Colton's shoes were important, right? Soccer was important. I sighed, handing the book back to the cashier. "Okay, Mom." And just like that, it started. A few days later, I watched as my mom handed Colton a brand new pair of cleats. And then, not even a week after that, she bought him a brand new video game. No hesitation, no discussion about saving money. I remember sitting there, watching, and thinking, so, is it just me who has to sacrifice? But at 9 years old, you don't question it. You just assume this is how things are. By the time I was a teenager, it had evolved. I got my first job at 15, bagging groceries after school, while Colton focused on sports and being a kid. If I wanted anything, new clothes, a school trip, a phone, I had to earn it myself. But if Colton wanted something, it was a necessity. It was an investment in his future. "Your brother is younger, Travis. He'll pay it forward someday. Travis, you're so good with money. It just makes sense for you to handle more responsibility. You're the older brother. Isn't it your job to make sure Colton has what he needs?" At 15, I believed them. At 18, I questioned it. At 21, I realized the truth. Colton was never expected to pay anything forward. That was just my job, and that was only the beginning. I got my first real job at 22, fresh out of college, ready to build a future for myself. What I didn't realize at the time was that my future was never just mine to build. At first, it was small, barely noticeable. "Travis, sweetheart, can you cover the internet bill this month? Your dad had an unexpected expense." My mom said, "Hey, son, we're a little short for groceries. Would you mind helping out? Just this once." My dad asked, "Your brother needs some new books for school. You know how expensive college is." My mom asked, and I said yes. Of course I did. I had a good job, and they were my family. Helping them was the right thing to do, wasn't it? But the thing about favors is they don't stay small. The first time I hesitated, it was over something ridiculous. My mom called, asking me to cover their cable package. "I don't know, Mom. It's kind of expensive." She sighed, disappointed. That kind of sigh that makes you feel like you just failed as a son. "I just thought you'd want your father to be able to watch his sports. He works so hard, Travis. And your brother loves his shows. You know how he is. But it's fine. We'll figure it out somehow." So I paid it. And that was the moment I stopped being a son and became their financial safety net. And then came the night I first felt that something was off. It wasn't some dramatic revelation. It was just a small, nagging thought. A whisper in the back of my mind, telling me that something wasn't right. And it all started with a phone call from my mother. I was 26, sitting at a nice restaurant with friends. It was one of the rare nights I actually let myself relax. Good food, good drinks, just catching up. For once, I wasn't the responsible one. Then my phone rang. Mom, I don't even remember what she said first. Something about needing money right away, something urgent. It always was. Travis, I need you to send me $300. Right now. No greeting. No build-up. Just straight to the request. For what? I'll explain later. Just do it. And for some reason, I hesitated. Not long, just a second. That's when she sighed. You know the sigh? The one that says I'm disappointed in you. I thought you were better than this. Then came the guilt trip. It was always the guilt trip. I didn't think my own son would make me beg. Across the table, Mason was staring at me. I could feel it before I even looked up. I'll send it, I muttered, already pulling up my banking app. I hung up. Silence. When I looked up, Mason was just staring at me. Not saying anything, just watching. And that's when it hit me. I had done this so many times that I didn't even think about it anymore. Just picked up, sent the money, moved on. Like it was normal, but it wasn't, because if the roles were reversed, if Mason had been the one on the phone, getting guilt-tripped into sending money in the middle of dinner, I would have told him straight up, that's not normal. That's not okay. So why had it taken me this long to realize it for myself? I should have seen it coming. It started small, like it always did. Travis, honey, Colton needs some help with tuition. Just a little bit to get him through the semester. Then, a few weeks later, Travis, your brother's car broke down. It's not safe for him to be without one. Maybe you could help him finance something reliable. And then, Travis, Colton's been looking at houses lately. He just needs a little help with the down payment. Nothing crazy. At first, I thought they were joking. They weren't. I pushed back. For the first time, I actually pushed back. Why is it always me? My mother didn't even hesitate. Not for a second. Because you're responsible, Travis. You're the older brother. It's your job to take care of family. I laughed. I actually laughed. My job? Since when? My dad sighed like I was being unreasonable. Like I was the selfish one. We've given you everything, Travis. And now you don't want to help your own family? What happened to you? What happened to me? I worked. I saved. I built a life for myself. That's what happened. But apparently, that meant I owed them everything. The worst part? I still wasn't ready to accept the truth. Not until that night. Not until I heard them say it. There was a family party at my aunt's house. I had work, so I told them I wouldn't make it. But at the last minute, I managed to wrap things up early and decided to drop by. I didn't tell anyone. I just parked outside, walked up to the house, and stopped at the door. I heard them. Every word. It wasn't even a whisper. They weren't being careful. They didn't think they needed to be. Travis? Oh, he's fine. Always working. At least he's useful. And then laughter. Like it was funny. Like I was just some convenient little setup they had going for them. Then my mom's voice. Light, relaxed. Like she wasn't saying something that would stay with me forever. We never have to worry about him. If we need something, he'll take care of it. That was the moment something shifted in my brain. Because for years, I had told myself they appreciated me. Maybe they weren't the best at showing it, but deep down, they were proud of me, right? But hearing it like this, casually laid out like some business arrangement, I couldn't lie to myself anymore. They weren't proud of me. They were just glad I was useful. And then, of course, Colton, the real star of the family. Oh, Colton's our pride and joy. He's going to do great things. And that was it. No mention of me. No acknowledgement of everything I had done. Just him, the golden child. The one worth investing in. And I just stood there, frozen. I should have walked in, said something, called them out. But instead, I just turned around and left. Drove home in silence. Sat in my car for a long time, staring at the steering wheel, trying to wrap my head around the fact that this wasn't new. I had just never let myself see it before. Because the truth is, when you've spent your whole life trying to be enough, trying to prove you matter, you don't want to admit when it was never going to happen in the first place. I was never going to be their pride. I was never going to be the one they boasted about. I was never going to be more than what I could give them. And for the first time, I let myself accept it. I've been staring at this screen for hours. Not writing. Just staring. I don't even know how to put this into words. I keep thinking if I type it all out, maybe I'll make sense of it. Maybe it won't feel as real, but it is real. I don't even know why I'm surprised. I should have seen it coming. They called me last week. Told me to come home for Christmas dinner. I almost said no. After everything. The years of being used. The way they only called when they needed something. The fact that they never saw me as anything more than a walking ATM. I should have said no. But it was Christmas. And some stupid, desperate part of me still wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, they actually wanted me there. So I went. I walked into the house. And for a second, it felt normal. The tree was up. The fireplace was on. And the dining table was set just like it had been every Christmas growing up. For a second, I let myself think, maybe I was wrong. Maybe this time will be different. Then, right in the middle of dinner, my dad put his fork down, looked me straight in the eye, and said, "We've decided. You won't be in the will anymore." Just like that. Like he was talking about changing a cable plan. Like it was nothing. I think I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because what else was I supposed to do? I looked at my mom, waiting for her to say something. To tell him he was being ridiculous. She didn't. She just nodded. And then Colton, of course, Colton, sat back in his chair and smirked. It was time anyway. I don't even know what that was supposed to mean. Like I had been holding on to something that wasn't mine to begin with. Like I should have known this was coming. Like I should have been grateful they were telling me at all. I just sat there, hands in my lap, mouth dry. I wanted to say something, to ask them how they could do this to me, to remind them that I was the one who had been paying their bills. That Colton, golden boy Colton, had never lifted a damn finger to help them. That if anyone deserved to be part of this so-called legacy, it sure as hell wasn't him. But I didn't say any of that. I just sat there, realizing, really, truly realizing, that I had never actually been their son. I was a resource, a backup plan, a tool. And now that they didn't need me anymore, they were letting me know. I don't remember standing up. I don't remember pushing my chair back. I just remember the sound of it scraping against the floor. I remember my mom sighing. I remember my dad shaking his head like I was the disappointment. And I remember Colton's stupid, smug face as I turned around and walked out the door. I didn't slam it. I didn't yell. I just walked out into the cold, into my car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. I sat there, for God knows how long, just staring at my reflection in the windshield, trying to figure out what the hell just happened. How did I let it get this far? How did I not see it sooner? And then, because apparently I hadn't been humiliated enough, my phone buzzed. A text from Colton. "No hard feelings, bro. You know this is what's best." I threw my phone into the passenger seat, and I drove home. And now I'm here, writing this, because I don't know what else to do. Because I need someone, anyone, to tell me that I'm not crazy for feeling like my entire life just shattered in one night. I knew they'd come crawling back. I didn't have to wonder. I didn't have to guess. Because the moment my dad said those words on Christmas Eve, "We've decided. You won't be in the will anymore," I understood something. They thought they didn't need me anymore. They thought I was disposable. They thought cutting me off wouldn't change a damn thing for them. And that's why I didn't say anything. I just left. And 2 days later, I stopped paying their bills. For years, everything was in my name. Not because I wanted control, but because they never took responsibility for anything. The electric bill? Mine. The water? Mine. The internet? The gas? The trash collection? All mine. They never thought about it. Never asked whose name was on the accounts. They just assumed, like they always did, that I'd handle it. So when I stopped handling it, well, that's when things got interesting. The texts kept coming. "Mom, Travis, something's wrong with the power. The whole house is dark. Call me." Then my dad, less concerned, more annoyed. "Dad, did you forget to pay the bill? Fix it." Then Colton, because of course, Colton. "Colton, dude, the Wi-Fi is down." I was in the middle of a game. What the hell? I ignored all of them, let them sit in the cold. Day 2. The anger kicks in. At first, I didn't check my phone. I knew they'd be texting. I just didn't care. But by noon, the screen was flooded with notifications. First, a few missed calls. Then, the messages started piling up. "Mom, Travis, call me. There's something wrong with the power." "Dad, why is the house dark? Did you forget to pay the damn bill?" "Colton, bro, fix this." I was in the middle of a game. I stared at the messages for a moment, then locked my phone and went back to drinking my coffee. By evening, their patience had run out. "Dad, this is ridiculous. You're acting like a spoiled child." "Mom, we raised you better than this." "Colton, Jesus, man. You're really this bitter over some paperwork?" I actually laughed, because they still didn't get it. They thought I was throwing a tantrum, that I was doing this to punish them. They didn't realize. I was just done. It was colder now, below freezing, and suddenly, their messages started to shift. "Mom, Travis, please. Your father isn't feeling well. It's too cold in the house. Can't we just talk?" "Dad, your mother is sick. If something happens to her, that's on you." "Colton, come on, man. Just turn the heat back on. Be reasonable." I laughed. Be reasonable? Where was that reasoning when they kicked me out of their lives? When they decided I wasn't part of the family anymore? Where was it when they looked me in the eye and told me, plain as day, that I didn't matter? My phone buzzed. Not a text. A call. I let it ring. It rang again. And then, a voicemail. I pressed play. My mother's voice, shaking. Not with anger this time, but something else. Something weaker. "Travis, please. We made a mistake, okay? We were upset. We weren't thinking. But this is too much. We're family. Please just call me back. I sat there, phone in my hand, listening to her words, and I felt nothing. Not guilt, not regret, nothing. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't theirs to use anymore. I knew it was coming. After days of silence, no more texts, no more calls, I figured they were waiting for me to cave first. But I didn't. And then, on the coldest night of the week, they showed up. I heard the knocks. Loud. Sharp. I waited. Then my dad's voice. Tight, with controlled frustration. Travis. Open the door. I sighed. Stood up. Took my time walking over. Opened it. There they were. Shivering. Uncomfortable. Not in control for once. I leaned against the doorframe. Didn't say a word. Mom's voice cracked. It's freezing. We can't live like this. I tilted my head. Live like what? Like I had been living for the last 10 years? Paying for everything while they spent my money like it was theirs? Like barely getting by while Colton had everything handed to him? Dad's jaw tightened. Your mother is sick. You've made your point. Let's be reasonable. I actually laughed. Reasonable. Like when they told me I wasn't family anymore. Like when they cut me out without a second thought. I just stared at them. And for the first time ever, I felt nothing. They said it was a mistake. That they were just upset. That they didn't mean it. But they did. They meant every word. They just didn't expect to need me this soon. My dad tried to sound reasonable. My mom tried to sound sad. But all I could think about was how easily they had cut me off. How sure they were that they didn't need me. And now? Now, they were standing in my doorway, shivering, waiting for me to fix it. Just to see something, I stepped aside. Left the door open. They walked right in. No hesitation, like they still owned a piece of me. The second they stepped inside, I saw it. The shift. The way their shoulders dropped. The way they soaked in the warmth like they belonged there. Like this was still their home. And I let them. For a moment, just to see what they'd do. And then I said it. $10,000. Silence. The kind that stretches just long enough to make you want to fill it. My dad was the first to break. He didn't yell. He just looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Like I was the one being unreasonable. My mom stammered something about how they didn't have that kind of money. I just shrugged. Not my problem. You're out of your damn mind, my dad muttered. And that's when I realized. This was the first time they'd ever thought my terms were unfair. They didn't yell. They didn't argue. They just stood there. And for the first time, I saw it. The shift. The exact moment they realized they weren't in control anymore. My dad muttered something. Probably let's go. My mom hesitated, like she was waiting for me to say something. To change my mind. But I didn't. And eventually, they walked away. I shut the door. And this time, I didn't feel guilty. It's been a while since my last post. Honestly, I wasn't sure if I was going to come back here. But after everything that's happened, I figured I owed it to the people who followed my story. So here it is. The final update. The last time I wrote, my father had shown up at my door, trying one last time to pull me back in. He didn't come with an apology. He didn't come with regret. He came with one final attempt to manipulate me. And when I told him no, when I shut the door in his face, I felt something I had never felt before. Relief. That was months ago. Since then, I've heard bits and pieces about what happened to them. They lost the house. My brother, who had never worked a day in his life, finally had to get a job. My mother, the woman who used to tell me I was lucky to have a family to support, was suddenly the one without support. And me? I've never been better. For the first time in my life, my money is mine. My time is mine. My decisions are mine. I don't wake up dreading a phone call asking for money. I don't spend my days waiting for the next guilt trip. I am free. And now, I'm doing something I never thought I'd do. I'm taking a break. I've spent so many years working nonstop. Not because I wanted to, but because I felt like I had to. Because I thought I didn't have a choice. Now, I do. So, I booked a one-way ticket. Nowhere fancy, just somewhere warm, somewhere quiet. Somewhere that isn't haunted by memories of people who only saw me as a paycheck. I don't know how long I'll be gone. A few weeks, maybe longer. But for the first time in my life, I'm doing something for myself. And if you're reading this, if any part of my story sounds familiar to you, listen to me when I say this. Fight for your happiness. Don't let anyone take advantage of you. Not your parents. Not your siblings. Not anyone. You don't owe anyone your life just because they share your blood. I spent years believing that if I just gave more, if I just worked harder, my family would finally love me the way I wanted them to. They never did. And when I finally stopped giving, I realized something. They never actually loved me. They loved what I could do for them. If someone only wants you around when they can use you, then they don't deserve you. Let them go and never look back. Some stories stay with you long after you've heard them. This is one of those stories. We found this post buried deep in Reddit, and it was impossible to ignore. A story about resilience, about breaking free from expectations, about realizing that sometimes The family you're born into isn't the one that deserves you. Not everyone has the strength to walk away from a lifetime of manipulation. But Opie did. And that's why this story matters. What do you think? If you were in Opie's position, would you have done the same? Let us know in the comments. And if you want more real stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to Reddit True Vault. Because sometimes, the truth is stranger and more powerful than fiction.